Welcome to this webinar, How MSPs Can Sell More Security. I don't think there's a better time right now for MSPs to be selling security based on everything that's in the news. And we're really excited about this specific webinar because what we're going to share with you today is something you're not going to get in the MSP ecosystem, right? This is sales content that is, in my opinion, really special, and that's because of the guest that we have today, John Barrows. So this webinar today is brought to you by SaaS Alerts, our friends at LionGuard, Password Boss, and Symbol Security. I'm going to do an introduction here today and then hand it over to John Barrows. Then we're going to hear briefly from Password Boss and LionGuard. And then stay tuned because at the end, we're going to do a Q&A session. And that's some of my favorite stuff with John Barrows. So everyone knows you're probably tuned in because our featured speaker today is John Barrows. John and I go back a long time, almost 20 years. And I'm proud to call him a colleague and even more proud to call him a friend. One of the great things about what John's done with his career, from my perspective, selfishly being in the MSP space, is I know that his first sales executive position on the leadership team was at an MSP. John and I worked together at Thrive Networks in Boston for a number of years. We ended up selling that company to Staples in 2006. A funny story I was thinking about today, JB, is in 2004, 2005, John and I were featured in Inc. magazine for our sales process and how we cultivated the sales process back then. And I remember, we heard from the publisher that, the magazine was out on stands that day. So we scoured Maynard, Massachusetts and Concord, Massachusetts that day looking for copies of Inc. magazine. We couldn't actually find any that day. We did eventually get our hands on a number of them and were able to keep them. But that's how far John and I go back. We literally had lunch almost every single day for, 7 years or so. Since then, since those days, John has gone on to create JB Sales, and one of the most successful sales training organizations for technology companies in the world. Let me just highlight some of John's clients: Salesforce, AWS, Amazon Business, Google, Slack, Box, Dropbox, LinkedIn, Zoom, Snowflake, Cisco, Zendesk, Okta, Crunchbase, Asana. Those are just some of the tech companies that John does sales training for. When I say that this is special content, I really mean it. You're not going to get this other places in the MSP ecosystem. When you look at the market cap of those companies I just mentioned alone, you're probably talking, $7-8 trillion. Google and Salesforce combined are $2 trillion. So we're in for a treat today. Again, I like to bring on now my friend, my colleague, sales training guru, John Barrows.
Thanks, Jim. I appreciate it, man. And look, those logos sound pretty cool, but at the end of the day, we all got the same problems, right? So from a sales standpoint, we all share similar challenges. And what I'm going to share with you today is a little bit of what I've been thinking about as far as the evolution of sales right now, and also what our clients expect of us. So I usually get super tactical with very specific techniques, but because this is more of a webinar of, the goal here is really to get you to think and thinking of different ways to add value throughout the entire sales process and also be as agile as possible when it comes to selling. I genuinely believe right now is agility is the #1 competitive advantage for any company, right? Whether it's because, look, the pandemic hit, the companies that adjusted on the fly and are the ones that are succeeding right now. The ones who are waiting for things to go back to normal are getting smoked right now. And it's the same thing with sales organizations. Look, what worked 6 months ago, what worked a year ago isn't working anymore, Like, I don't know if you guys remember when when COVID first hit, and you heard on social, hey, lead with empathy, lead with empathy, lead with empathy, right? And then every single email in your inbox started with, I hope you and your family are doing well. You know what I mean? And then it cut to some piece of shit value proposition. Like, there's like, that became overnight, that became like an eye roll as soon as you got it. So things right now are moving faster than ever. And we as a sales organizations and sales reps need to start to adapt faster right now. And so I'm going to share with you just kind of a little bit of a history here, and it ties into the Thrive story. Because from a sales standpoint, we went from obviously knocking on doors and making cold calls to then, having email and then having social. And there was really, you talk about solution selling, like my career goes back. I started DeWalt Power Tools, but then Xerox. And that's where I got my real formal sales education before we started Thrive. And Xerox kind of invented solution selling back, in the late 70s, early 80s. And there wasn't really much change since then. And then all of a sudden, predictable revenue came out, and Salesforce changed the game as far as sales teams and how they were structured. And the funny thing about this is that Jimmy and I put this together before this happened. So little thing, Jimmy, bring up our background here. Yeah, I was a VP of sales. I was hiring 6 or 7 reps, and typical MSP. I would hire people with experience, right? And have them run full cycle sales. And I was a player coach, right? So I had to sell, prospect, sell all that stuff while trying to manage 7 reps. And it was a disaster because most reps can't do all aspects of sales really, really well, right? They can't do really good at prospecting, really good at qualification, really good at negotiations, and really good at closing. You're usually good at one of those areas or maybe 2 of them. So what I said was, I kept hiring these kids, and I was like, this can't be the right way to do this. So we took a step back and we broke down the sales process, and we said, all right, what are the 3 main categories here of sales, right? Open, process, close. We got to find the clients, we got to meet with them, we got to close them. And I looked at myself as the VP and I said, all right, well, what am I good at? What do I like? Well, I liked the meeting part. I like developing relationships and getting people through. Could I close? Obviously, but I was like a hardcore closer? No. Could I prospect? Yes, but did I like it? No. So we said, all right, well, I got the middle piece here. And at the time, our CEO was like a hardcore closer, like jackass closer type of thing, like had no problem asking the hard question. Jim knows exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. Like to the point where it was like awkward. We'd sit in the meetings and he would ask questions and I'd be like, I can't believe you're asking that. I literally want to crawl away and die right now. But he got shit done, right? So the gap was the prospecting side of the house. And so that's where, instead of hiring another sales rep, we hired Jim as our director of business development to manage channels to get leads from. And we broke those leads down into, cold calling, obviously, events and website, all that other stuff. And it turned us into this engine. And that's what predictable revenue is basically what predictable revenue is. It's segmenting the sales process down, okay? So that we can specialize in those areas. It actually creates a really good ramp for reps. They come in, brand new 22-year-old kid, you put them behind the phone, you make some cold calls, they grow up, you build them into a sales rep that plugs into kind of that middle role where they go out in meetings and then they move to closers and then you just backfill, right? So it's a really scalable model. The problem is it's gotten a little bit out of control. And it's gotten us to where we are at a mess today, because this is what's happening right now. Companies, and for those of you who aren't aware, like when I talk about acronyms like SDR, BDR, sales development rep, these are the ones that are making cold calls. And then AEs, account executives, those are the ones who go on the meetings and close the business usually. And then CSM, those are the customer support team. But the problem right now is you have sales reps, SDRs, cranking out template emails like they're just marketing, right? And they have all these cadence tools like SalesLoft and Outreach and those type of things. And they're cranking out, hey, we're the leading provider of, hey, did you get my first email? Bubbling this one up to the top. Hey, why aren't you responding? And then the breakup email 1, 2, or 3 stuck under a rock type of crap, which is just awful. So those reps are doing that, right? Then you got AEs just droning through presentations. And I mean droning. And by the way, I was a victim of this as well. When early in my career, somebody told me 2 ears, 1 mouth, make sure the client speaks more than you, blah, 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 right? So face-to-face meetings at Thrive, I would ask 35 minutes worth of questions, legit 35 minutes worth of questions. And because I want to make sure you spoke longer than me. And by the way, it didn't matter what you said in those 35 minutes, as long as you had computers, you were getting my pitch. And so it would be like 35 minutes. Oh, that's really interesting. And then all of a sudden, 35 minutes in, I'd be like, So we were founded in June of 2000 by 3 founders, 1 strategy and 1 technical and 1 finance guy, which really puts us in a unique position as an IT services firm, because most IT services firms are founded by engineers, and they take a very engineering focus to your business, where we take a strategy, a finance, and an engineering focus to your business. And we have 3 levels of engineers, so you never pay for what you don't need. And you have an account manager that's your single point of contact. And I would literally go on and on and on about all the wonderful things that we did. And at the end, I would get this a lot. And by the way, for everybody listening, if you ever hear this word at the end of one of your demos, you know you've done a miserable job. And it's the word digest. You know what, John? A little time to digest what you just told me right there. Why don't you circle back in a couple of weeks? We'll take it from there. Does that sound fair? If you ever hear that, stop and apologize to the person that you just wasted their time. It is our job to help them digest the information, right? If they walk out of the conversation more confused than they were walking in, we've done a terrible job as a sales professional. So AEs are doing that. I mean, the pitch slap, like just, hey, here's all my stuff. No one cares, okay? They only care about what's relevant to them, but that's what we're still doing to this day. And the relationship between the SDR and the AE is broken. Whenever that gets switched over, it's never smooth. And then you got customer success who are doing their piece of crap quarterly business reviews where they pull up a bunch of slides that make no sense and drone through that. And then they do their renewal notice. Hey, 90 days, 60 days, 30 days, here's a huge discount. Could you please sign up? And that relationship's a mess between AEs and CSMs. That transition, clients are always like, CSMs almost have to re-qualify the opportunity when they actually get it from the sales rep. Then you got marketing up there doing God knows what, you know, just throwing all sorts of crap out there. And that relationship between sales is broken. Then you got the customer down here doing their own dance. It's no longer a linear. I love sales organizations that have sales stages, and they talk about moving from. Clients don't have buying stages, but clients move in and out of the buying process whenever the hell they want, right? And we have to adapt to that. We used to force them through our process, and now they are breaking that all day. And like, if you try to force somebody through your sales process, you're probably going to lose the deal. Then you got social layered onto this, which makes it even more messy. And then you got COVID, and it just blew the whole thing up. And so the point now is the question that I think we got to ask ourselves, and it's a really important question, especially for this crew, is what can we do that a computer can't? Those emails that I talked about SDR sending out, I can get Marketo, Eloqua, Pardot, you name one of those tools. I can light up one of those tools, get a consultant to really amp it up or hire somebody internally. And I can do that 1,000 times better than any sales rep ever could, right? Demos, as a former marketer, that's my actual background is marketing, my degree. As a former marketer, I can actually create a better demo than you can if all you're going to do is drone through the presentation, because I can do click-throughs and avatars and stuff like that. And if you click on this, you can go on this journey. If you click on that, you can go on that journey. And I can serve up information to you at those times based on what you're interested in. I can actually do that far better than a sales rep ever could, right? And so there's all these things that we got to ask ourselves right now that like, how do we differentiate? And for those of us who are still going through here's my entire slide deck, let me bring you through and think how important I am because I matter, you don't. I'm going to be very clear with you right now. The client doesn't care about you or how awesome you. I mean, I love organizations that try to differentiate themselves based on their customer service. Think about it. Oh, our customer service is the best in the industry. What do you think? Your competitors are out there being like, look, our technology, it's awesome, like top notch, right? But oh man, our customer service sucks. You know, like account managers. I used to think I used to spend 10 minutes talking about an account manager, about how awesome, single point of contact and all this other stuff. Like what I should have said is, hey, do you got an account manager with your existing solution? Yeah, we do. You like it? Yeah. Okay. Well, we do too. Or, you know, I could argue ours is better than the other, but whatever. Next, because what I'm hunting for is what matters to you. Right? I wrote a blog post, and everybody can Google this one, called Sell to the 20%, which is my fundamental belief. If you pick any product or service you own, I don't care what it is, I almost guarantee you only use 10 to 20% of the functionality of whatever that product or service is, right? I mean, your clothes, 10% maybe. Your car, now nobody's using it, but it used to be you drive to the office, you let it sit there, drive it home, 10%. iPhone, this thing has more power than we used to send somebody to the moon, for crying out loud, but yet most people check their email, Snapchat, and whatever. So because most people only use 10 to 20% of the functionality, whatever they buy, that's how I believe people buy, right? That's what they care about. So we got to hunt for that. And the way that we can do this, and oh, by the way, I forgot to put this one up. This is just to prove that computers are coming for us. I used to train this, I still do train this, but when I joined Basho after Thrive, And by the way, I got fired after Staples bought us, so there's a little side story there. But after joining Basho, they had this Basho email, which was a super highly personalized thing where you went on somebody's website, you found something personal about them, and you wrote a really, really targeted message only to be sent to them, and you sent it to the executive and you got referred down. About 8 years ago, I was getting like a 30% response rate on this sucker. Just one email, like not even like it. And I would spend 20, 30 minutes writing it because I was getting that high of a return, right? But then about 5 or 6 years ago, I started seeing a noticeable decline because the cadence tools were coming out, the sales lofts, the outreaches, and those type of things. And reps are just blasting the C-suite with it. And then about 4 years ago at this point, I got a little bit of a wake-up call. So a couple of the reps who worked at Salesforce reached out to me and said, hey, John, we created this artificial intelligence bot that creates super highly personalized emails at a fraction of the time of sales reps, and we want to show it to you. It's based off of your email. I was like, please, whatever. Fine, send me a sample, right? And this is what they sent me. Now, you can pause the webinar if you read this. As you read this, realize that a human being did not write this email. I mean, I've been doing this for about 10 years here. I don't think I could have written a better email than this, right? So I send the guy an email, hey, there was no human involvement in writing this. And he goes, no human involvement other than picking the article used from our app. And oh, by the way, it took 70 seconds. Shit. I mean, I could write that email not in 70 seconds. So it was a huge wake-up call for me because, I mean, if my whole training was based on teaching people how to send this email, and now it's a Gmail plugin, like what in the world would people spend money on me for, right? But it's also a huge wake-up call for us as sales reps, because most sales reps are sending out their templated cadences. Hey, did you get my first email? Look at all the features and functions of what our solution does. Did you get my first email? Bubble in this one of the top type of crap. And you got technology doing this type of thing. You don't have to be Nostradamus, ladies and gentlemen, to figure out where this one goes, okay? So a couple of things to think about, and then I'll get some tactical stuff here, but I stole this. How do we survive here? One of them is, and I stole this one from Gary Vaynerchuk. He talks a lot about, like, everybody talks about content is king. Content is king. He said, fine, if content is king, then context is God. And that to me is sales, marketing and sales. Marketing is content. Sales is context. If we as sales professionals are not putting any context around our content, we're no different than marketing, and I have no idea why we're getting paid to do what we do. Blasting out emails, that's content. I don't need a sales rep to do that. Making generic cold calls, leaving generic voicemail messages, don't need a sales rep to do that either. Droning through PowerPoint presentations, don't need that. All that stuff can be handled by computers. Context is taking that marketing material that they came up with, the ebooks, the white papers, the case studies, and before you send it to the prospect or the client or whoever, putting your flavor on top and saying why it's important to them. Hey, we just came out with this ebook recently, and it's about 15 pages. The reason I think you should get might get some value out of this is because XYZ, right? Here's one webinar. Here's one, Jim, you can do for this one, by the way. You know how a lot of people sign up for webinars, right? And they don't attend because they know they're going to get the email afterwards saying, hey, sorry you missed the webinar. Here's the link to it, right? Well, if I'm a rep, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have my top 10 target accounts on my list, the CEOs or the executives that I want to connect with and stay relevant to. And I'm going to try to get them to go. So I'm going to have marketing send out the email saying, hey, we got this webinar coming up. I'm going to take that email, forward it back to the executives and say, hey, Jim, I'm not sure if you saw this webinar that our marketing team's putting together for next week. The reason I think you should go to it is because, right? Now, say you sign up for it and you don't attend. Well, then I'm going to take that email that goes out with the, hey, here's the link to it. I'm going to forward it back to Jim and say, hey, Jim, I saw you signed up for the webinar. I noticed you missed it. Based on what I heard about you, based on what I know about you, if you actually start listening to this webinar around minute 13 and go from minute 13 to 32, there's some super tactical things in there I think you might get some value out of. Context, content. The slide deck. No, if you have 30 slides in your slide deck, I promise you that 20 of them are irrelevant to the person that you're presenting to. Have a conversation with them. Go back and forth. Take the slide deck down. Have a conversation, right? This is like, figure out that 20%. The other thing is to really consider, and this is where we're going with this experience here. This stat came out recently from Corporate Executive Board. The sales experience matters significantly. Gong has this nexus that I subscribe to, which is moving forward from here and even in the past. It has absolutely nothing to do with what you sell. It has absolutely everything to do with how you sell. MSPs, I'm sorry. You guys trying to differentiate yourselves based on your service, based on your tech stack, based on your, like, you're going to be thrown on a spreadsheet and compared feature functionality and go from there. And that's not selling, in my opinion. That's RFP. Give me some data, put it in there. How you sell, how you engage, and how you add value from the minute you reach out to somebody is what 53% of the purchasing decision is based on. I mean, look at that. Value to price. Everybody thinks price is the problem. Look at that value to price ratio, 9%. That's what they're, when it comes to that. Product service delivery. Okay. Yeah. Your customer service, good for you, right? Brand impact, company, like, your reputation, that matters, right? But 53% of it is based on the sales rep and the experience they get through that process, which is why it's so important to be adding value. When I say from minute one, from that first email, right? And adding value isn't telling you how great I am, isn't sending you, all the specs that we can do. So just from a tactical standpoint, look, the fundamentals, the best reps I ever come across, right, are the ones who are rooted in fundamentals. They do the dirty work all the time, and they do it consistently. They set agendas for meetings. They send summary emails out afterwards. They set goals for themselves. They're constantly evolving as far as their thought, their knowledge, but they use a process. They use the fundamentals to always fall back on. And people outside of New England are going to hate me for this reference, but the Bill Belichick, do your job. Like, that is real. I mean, yes, Tom Brady obviously was the key to that whole thing working. But if you remember, it was like, it didn't matter what the role was. Belichick could plug anybody into any, because it was the system, right? And they followed the fundamentals. Business acumen right now is one thing. If I were to suggest any sales rep what they need to focus on to get better and to elevate themselves, is focus on your business acumen. Forget about the tips and the tricks and the sales techniques and all that other stuff. Learn how business runs. Talk to C-level executives. Go follow thought leaders in the space and learn from them about how they talk, what they talk about. Read the books that executives read, right? Executive priorities, for instance. And Jim, if you want this, I can add this to the flavor. We do this executive priority sheet every single year, where we have some kids who are way smarter than me go out there and do some homework on the top priorities of the top executives in top industries. And it comes out and it's like it's healthcare, SaaS, manufacturing, retail, all that. CEO priority 1, 2, 3, CFO priority 1, 2, 3, CIO priority 1, 2, 3. And the concept there is CIOs in healthcare have different priorities than CIOs in manufacturing. We got to understand what those are. What you don't want to do, by the way, is it kind of ties to creating urgency. I get a lot of reps saying, hey, how do you create urgency? You can't create urgency. You can uncover it and you can drive it, but you can't create it. And the way you uncover it is by aligning with priorities. But the problem is the way I used to get there, especially at Thrive, was tell me about your priorities. And if you ask a very generic, dumb, or make a dumb statement like that, you're usually going to get very generic and dumb answers. Oh, revenue. Oh, let me show you you're going to impact your revenue, right? Instead, if you walk in and say, hey, we're typically dealing with CIOs in healthcare, and they're telling us that right now, COVID times, top priorities are X, Y, and Z. Are those yours? Even if they're not, the fact that you show their world a little bit tends to open up the conversation a little bit more, right? Why do you think CEOs have an easier time selling than sales reps do when they start an MSP? Because you're usually an engineer, you usually know what the hell you're talking about, and you can talk at a business level to other business executives, where sales reps come in and they talk features, functions, speeds, and fees, and use sales tactics to executives who want to have executive conversations. So that's something we all have to focus on, as far as so that we can bring value throughout the sales process and not just ask, our basic questions. And then staying on top of things. The trends, I'm going to throw a tool out there. It's called Feedly, Feedly. It's an RSS aggregator. This is how I stay up to date on all the trends. You can create folders in Feedly. Like for me, it's artificial intelligence. SaaS is my industry, some of the other trends. And I find all the thought leaders in those spaces who are blogging and writing about that stuff. I put them in those folders. And then every morning when I'm drinking my coffee, I'm reading through I'm kind of skimming through headlines of all the thought leaders who are writing stuff about my industry, about the trends and that type of stuff. And I'm reading an article or two, and I'm actually then sharing that with clients when I talk to them and say, hey, did you read that article recently that just came out by so-and-so? And here it is. Or sharing that on social. A couple more here are qualification versus discovery. I'm embarrassed to say this, that and Jim, throughout my entire career at sales at Thrive, I combined discovery and qualification. I just kind of whatever. I'm asking questions here. I have now come to a very clear distinction between discovery and qualification. Qualification is about us, okay? I'm trying to qualify you to see if you fit in my world, right? That's where BANT, MEDIC, all that stuff comes from. Right. And that's in our world. It's how many computers you have, what's your average operating system, like, what kind of SaaS tools you're using, all that. That's all qualification stuff that provides no benefit to the client. And it's almost annoying to them in a lot of ways. Like, why are you asking me? I get why you're asking these questions, but it's a shit part of the conversation. So I try to segment that out so I can focus on discovery. And if you want to add value, what you should be asking, and here's some questions that we're working on these days called impact questions. Like, questions to get to the impact to the business of what a breach would do to their organization. What are their growth goals as a company, and how are they trying to get there? And if they don't get there, what does that mean for the business? I could talk with Jim all day long about, hey, SaaS alerts and what are you guys trying to accomplish? And over the next 12 to 24 months, what's your, exit strategy? What are those things are? And by the way, if you don't do whatever I'm hopefully trying to sell to Jim or help him with, if you don't do this, what impact is that going to have on you reaching those goals as fast as you want to reach them? And therefore, what does that mean to you personally? And if I can get to that impact, that quantifiable impact, then I can get people to move, right? Because the way that you can add value, yeah, you can bring knowledge to the table, whatever, but another way you can add value is by asking better questions to get people to think. That is our job. Our job is not to features and functions, speeds and feeds. Google took that away from us a long time ago. Our job is to get people to think. And if you want to go read Challenger Sale, there's another kind of the Book of the Month Club about 10 years ago. The Corporate Executive Board brought it out as kind of the new sale. But Challenger is like, I'm an industry expert and I'm telling you, type of thing. I don't like that. I think that comes across a little bit arrogant. Challenger to me is, I challenge you by asking you questions that get you to pause for a second and go, I didn't think of that. And I do that with prospecting. I do that during the sales cycle. And that is adding value. All right. So that's where the challenge is. And then the rise of video. I just want to throw this in there right now. If you're not using video in your sales process, I don't know what you're missing. I don't know what you're doing right now. LinkedIn video, it's free. All you got to do is be connected to somebody, and you can use your iPhone. So if Jimmy and I are connected, instead of me texting him something, I could actually, there's a little button that's a drop down, and the video pops up, and I can create a video, and it'll go through LinkedIn, and it'll show up as an image, and you can watch it. But we're also using video across the entire sales process. So dealing with objections. When a client objects and they send an email saying, hey, you're going to push this till Q1, or John, we've gone a different direction. Obviously, I want to call them immediately and be like, hey, what's going on? But they're not going to pick up the phone most likely. So what I'll do is I'll light up a video. We use Vidyard. It's a free Chrome plugin. I'll light up Vidyard and I'll be like, hey, Jim, I got your email. Look, I understand priorities always change, that type of stuff. I'm a little confused though, because you had said when we were talking X, Y, and Z, and now you're pushing off. So could you just give me like 5 minutes so we can just reset expectations here based on what we talked about? That right there, huge response rate compared to what I used to get. Delivering proposals. You know how sometimes you got to get to power, right? But you're stuck here and you want to get to that next level. You want to present your solution to the executive suite, but this person just won't let you. Light up Vidyard. You can actually put your little ugly mug in the corner there and bring up the proposal on the screen. You can actually record the screen with you talking them through the proposal and actually presenting to the executive. So say it's, Sarah, and, say Sarah's the executive and, Jeff is the person that you're dealing with, and Jeff will not let you get to Sarah. I do a video and say, hey, Jeff, instead of just sending you the PDF here, I wanted to kind of walk you through this proposal a little bit. And by the way, if you wanted to forward this up to Sarah, please feel free. So, highlight wise, you guys told us this, and this is how we map that out. These are the things that really differentiate us. You can look through the details later, but I really wanted to make sure that the high level alignment was there. Thank you very much. Let me know if you have any questions. You send that, you can tell when somebody opens it, you can tell how long they watched it, and then you can tell if they forwarded it. So those are all things that we can do throughout this to level up from a customer experience standpoint, add value throughout the sales process, and make it a much more enjoyable process for the customer to go through, as opposed to just droning through our PowerPoints and talking about how great we are compared to everybody else, which is saying the same damn thing. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Anybody can take a look at jbarrows.com. That's where we got we get to put a ton of free content out there for people to consume. And I also do a ton of free consulting there on John M. Barrows. That's my Instagram handle. So if anybody has any questions or, has any feedback or anything like that, you can hit me up there, and I will hand it back to you, Jim, to talk about Q&A and whatever else we're going to do here today.
Awesome. Thanks, JB. Appreciate it. So I'm going to dive into the context and adding value here with SaaS starts. Before I do that, and by the way, I'm going to do something that people say never do, which is do a live demo. Oh, can you see my screen now, JB?
Yep.
Okay. So I want to address some of the things you said and build off of it. So context is God. If
No, content is king, context is God. Yeah.
Right. So I think it's really important for MSPs to provide more context when they're talking about security. One of the things I said early on was now is the absolute best time in the history of the world.
Oh my God. Yeah.
If you're a technology service provider to be selling cybersecurity. Right.
You know, I mean, talk about ICPs again, the ideal customer profile. When COVID hit, all of a sudden sales training, our ICP shifted and the industries, and all of a sudden cybersecurity went through the roof as far as like, because they were, I think we have like 7 or 8 cybersecurity companies who were just like printing money, but needed a way to structure it. And so that like a lot of our client base came from that industry right out of COVID's. And they're all doing fantastic, by the way.
Yeah. So end of the day, like we want to empower our MSP partners to be able to prospect better, close more deals, and then once you have a customer, an existing customer, to be able to add more value in the process, right? Add more value in the context of servicing that small business. So what we've done is really focus on SaaS alerts is a reporting engine that any MSP can use to, again, prospect and add more context around cybersecurity and where the holes are, and also adding value, as you said, from minute one in the sales process. Okay, so those are the things that we focus on. And for those that aren't familiar with SaaS alerts, think of us as a robotic employee, okay, that scans your SaaS tenants back and forth every 90 seconds and only surfaces the really pertinent information that you need to act on behalf of your customer. Okay. Just within the last week, we've helped MSPs actually uncover a couple different breach scenarios. Okay. So that's just a little bit about SaaS alerts, but specifically around context to security and adding value minute one. So again, this is a live demo in our security engine, in our reporting engine. So what you can do here, I did a presentation last week for an MSP down in Nashville at an event, and I found their logo online. So this is actually Direct IT. They're I think in Massachusetts, and it was really easy, right? All I did was I found their logo, I downloaded it, and then I uploaded it to the SaaS alerts reporting engine, and I saved it. And by the way, you can also change the color to match your color scheme, whatever that might be for your MSP. So you can actually make this really specific to you. And then ultimately we have 2 reports. First is what we call the SaaS risk report. And this is great for prospecting, JB, because what it does is it provides that level of context. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to select a company, a customer of mine that I have on the platform. I'm going to just say, okay, I'm going to look at this activity, their risk levels associated with their SaaS applications from July 1st to today. Okay, and I'm going to run it. So what you're looking at here, JB, is all of the places in the world that bad actors are coming at you from. Right? These are if you are not using MFA today, multi-factor authentication, you're crazy not to. And one of the things that MSPs struggle with is trying to get their actual customers to adopt multi-factor authentication, because they're just telling them. They've never had anything to show them to actually get them to move, right? So one impact question could be, are you using multi-factor authentication right now? A lot of people are not, because they think that it's too burdensome and too arduous to do. Well, I'm going to show you now why this is important. I'm going to give you some context around multi-factor authentication and why it's important. These are all the places in the world right now that people are trying to get into your SaaS applications. Specifically right now, this is Office 365 or Microsoft 365. Okay. And if you scroll down, you can actually show them these are all the total events or total attacks right now going on or during that time period. And you specify the time period as you saw. And these are all the external files. They're at risk right now from a SaaS perspective in your organization. 586 files at risk.
Yikes.
Okay. I don't know about you, but this definitely opens my eyes. If I'm a prospect, I'm looking at this and you're the MSP, you can say, hey, look, this is a type of oversight that we provide, the type of for our customers. This is the type of visibility we have into their SaaS environments. And JB, we've gone from 10 MSPs starting in January. We're now up to 150 MSPs as we sit here on July 21st. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so we've grown really nicely. But what I'm saying is there's only 150 MSPs in the world doing it over like 100,000 MSPs. So this is like virgin snow right now, right? This is an opportunity to do something that other people are not, creating a specific point of difference in your sales process and delivering value in minute one. And we have an entire playbook that we've put together, in terms of walking people through steps on how to take a prospect through this report.
So can I chime in here, Jim, real quick?
Please.
Two ways for people to think about leveraging this information. One is obviously once you're in the sales process, when you're talking to somebody and discovery comes up and you ask them, hey, are you doing multi-factor authentication? What are some of the challenges around that? And you know what your vulnerabilities are right now, right? And if the client's like, yeah, I think I do. Well, like, do you really know? And then you can bring it up, not in a presentation, but live demo, be like, let me just show you, right? Boom. But the other way, if you want to use it on a prospecting standpoint, is remember I talked about using video in prospecting, right? Where it's like, hey, Jim, and it's a video that, I can either do on LinkedIn or with Vidyard. I can create the video and I can record my screen with my little bubble head next to it. Well, that is a perfect application. If you want to do it as part of your cadence of your contact strategy, right? I probably wouldn't do it as the first one. I would probably try to warm them up a little bit with some social, maybe a call and an email about something that you saw on their website or whatever. But maybe like the fourth or fifth touch, I'll fire off an email with a video in it that says, hey, Jim, I've been really paying attention to what you're doing over there, and I see you're growing like crazy. And I wanted to show you something. I actually took your name and put it into our tool that we're using here to see vulnerabilities. And I was a little bit taken back by how many vulnerabilities we're actually reporting on your company itself. Let me just show you how this works. And I got this full report that I can share with you if you want to, if feel free to give me a call back here. So you don't give it to them. You don't give them the full report. You do a quick little video that showed just what Jimmy said. And then and then your call to action is, look, if you're really interested in diving into the details of where these things are coming from, ping me back here. I'd love to set up some time with you to walk you through it. Like, that's how to use that as far as adding value. But again, do not make that your first touch. Use that as your value touch, like after you've warmed them up a little bit, right? Because also people don't usually like clicking on videos from people they don't know, especially in the security space. So that's why you have to warm them up a little bit, and make it the fourth, fifth, sixth touch as opposed to the first one.
Right. And I'm glad you mentioned that too, in terms of clicking on links and stuff. In our playbook, JB, we've actually addressed how to overcome that after talking to multiple MSPs who are using it and kind of gleaning some best practices from that. So, and you're going to need, their global admin credentials to run these reports. So, one of the things, one MSP that's doing this beautifully right now is they're showing, hey, look, this is the insight we have right now on our customers. And I'll give you an example of one. I can run this for you if you want. I don't need to see your credentials. And the way our product is set up is I can send you a link, you put in your own credentials, and I can take you through the report. But like I said, we have a whole playbook on that. If you sign up for a 30-day free trial, it's in our knowledge base. You literally get the trial for free for 30 days and you get the playbook for free for 30 days.
Nice.
So, with that being said, I'll just show you one more, report. And this is more, JB, associated with once you have the client. Remember, we used to do like quarterly business reviews with our customers. So, every MSP should be doing them right now. The reality is that, a lot of them don't. The reason is not because they don't want to do them. They have a difficult time actually getting their customers to take the meetings. And the reason for that is because they've run out of good content to actually present.
Yeah, no, they suck.
Yeah.
The most quarterly business reviews is a bunch of data that I don't really even understand. And you know what I mean? And it's, again, the rep pitching effectively, droning through a PowerPoint about all this stuff that is completely irrelevant to the client. Ultimately, they usually want to know, am I safe? Am I not? Like, where are my gaps right now? What are we working on right now? How have we made progress since our last conversation? That's what they want to hear. They could care less about all the graphs and the statistics that you bring to them as far as like the details. So like, boil it. The reason that's why people bail on meetings with sales reps, because most sales reps suck. I'm going to ask you a bunch of doctor checkup questions. I'm going to give you my pitch. So that's why they have no problem canceling a meeting with us and not even feeling bad about it, because they know for the most part that meeting was probably going to suck anyways. The same thing with quarterly business reviews.
Exactly. Like, how many times can you hear it? This is the number of, viruses that we quarantined for you last
Good
month,
for you.
Right. Yeah. So, and I was taking through MSPs through this last week, and one MSP said, look, this is great, but aren't you really capitalizing on fear? And I said, look, from my perspective, this is not fear. This is fact. This is going on right now. So, it's all about delivering value to the customer. So, this report is what we call the SaaS cyber assessment. And, it takes you through way more in depth, right? So it's looking at last known, login activity, where, green is good or okay, red is bad. So we look at account lockouts and authentication failures and people logging in from unknown whitelisted locations. So non-whitelisted locations. So, and then we, can scroll down and, we see, again, total number of events, critical alerts and alerts. This is a report, depending on what's important to you, the MSP, to show the customer, or what's important to the customer. You can actually modify this on the fly to show them, what is going on, or, what's happening in their environment, and really focus in on what's important. Again, context, JB, and adding value. And then, the failed logins, we find that, a lot of the failed logins really are multi-function or multi-authentication failures from brute force attacks. And we're seeing 3,000 brute force attacks per day for every 30,000 users on our platform. We're up to about 50,000 users on the platform as we speak. So, this takes you through, that and the alerts that you're seeing on a per user basis, login activity, unapproved logins, unapproved login locations, etc. Shared files. So in this case, there's 124 anonymous files out there being shared from this organization out into the ether. This leads to what we call orphan links. So JB, you and I could be prepping for this webinar. We're sharing information back and forth, and through OneDrive maybe, right? Or Google Drive. And then the webinar is over, and we're off doing our own thing. Well, guess what? If we didn't configure that link to terminate, that is out there. And it's just floating in the ether, waiting for a bad actor to grab it, use it as a tunnel to get back in to, or get into that application. So what we do is we alert on this and we say, look, you've got an orphan link out there, work with the customer to terminate that link to mitigate the exposure and eliminate that exposure. So, this, I think, from my perspective, right, it gives MSPs a lot more firepower and information to go into these meetings with, whether it's, again, in the prospecting process or in the quarterly business reviews. Right. So I just wanted to share this so people understood, taking what you said in terms of context and adding value minute one, and giving you some practical tools in the cyberspace right now to leverage.
Love it. Yeah.
So with that, we've got 12 minutes left. So we're going to turn it over right now to our friends at LionGuard. And Bobby's going to give us 90 seconds on LionGuard, and then John's going to follow up from Password Boss. And then JB, we're going to stay on and people can ask you questions.
Got it. Sounds good.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. JB, and incredible content. Love the stuff you're talking about. across the board, but especially bringing in the context. And I mean, going through MFA, like LionGuard pairs so nicely with SaaS alerts across a variety of areas, but just talking about MFA. So you go in like, hey, do you guys have MFA set up? You use SaaS alerts, you drive the point home with there's all of these crazy things hitting your account, trying to log in, brute force attempts, whatever those things are. And you say, hey, do you know which users in your organization have MFA set up? Now let me switch over to LionGuard. Let me show you all of your users. I can see who has MFA. I can see who's stale. I can see who has risk policies disabled. I can see who has unassigned licenses. And so now you just took that, you know, whether it's fear or whatever it is, the reality of the MSP space today, and then you showed them their own organization because you've already gotten those same credentials to set this stuff up. You walk in and say, hey, I don't know if you're working with an MSP or not, but they're clearly not doing their job because you have 5 users here without MFA, or you have all of your users here without MFA, or the ones that have MFA are stale. You know, there's so many simple things that are going on with ransomware. That's just a small piece of what LionGuard does. Big picture, MSPs use RMMs to get insight to their servers and workstations. If you ask an MSP what automation they use for the rest of their systems, they're still going to tell you their RMM. But that's crazy because they have firewalls, antivirus, backup, 365, domains, VMs, all these other systems out there. And you're not using it, or you're not using your RMM to capture data from those systems. And so LionGuard pulls data from all of those systems every single day, creates a historical record, does change management, and alerts, just like we were talking about off the 365 MFA stuff. We can do that off your firewalls if rules are changing. We can do that off backups failing. We can do that off DNS records changing. So there's a ton of stuff we do, but at the core, you're either spending dozens of hours per customer doing documentation, or you're not. If you are, that's a ton of wasted time and it's still not good. If you're not, you should be doing documentation, but you realize doing it manually is a waste of time. So really the only answer there is automated documentation, which is where LionGuard hits home. So that's the quick pitch. We love going through demos. Website's lionguard.com. There's no U, so check that out. My email's Bobby. I'll put it in the chat, bobby.jacobs@lionguard.com. So love to talk more.
Nice.
Great. Thanks,
Jim,
Bobby. Appreciate it.
Jim, could you take the slideshow down?
Oh, yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, there we go. Up next, we've got John Timko from Password Bus.
Yeah, hey, thanks, guys. So, you know, Jim and John, you both hit the nail on the head with security. We saw a tremendous jump, you know, with COVID, really, when businesses went remote. And one of the biggest challenges that we saw was the ability or the lack of ability to share passwords internally. So Password Boss, we are a password management solution. And where we've really excelled in the COVID era is now we have that ability for not only an MSP to share the passwords that they have internally, and just think of the volume of passwords they have, but it also allows for their technicians to run more productive and more efficiently because they're not having to deal with so many of these password resets from their clients. So what we do is we allow for a centralized repository. It's multi-tenant solution that allows an MSP to store their passwords that they can share amongst themselves. But more importantly, it gives them the ability to sell it downstream and become a revenue maker for them as well, for their clients to share their passwords and keep them contained. You know, what we have seen is passwords. Most people have the same 5 passwords they use time after again. It's either your kid's name and your street address, or your girlfriend's, your first girlfriend, or your car, or something like that. So what we do is we have the ability to generate these passwords for you, so you don't have to think about it. You just click them, you load them, and then your technicians work out of that. They can have access based upon roles to see these things. They can see the specific password or have a read-only. And what this really does is this makes your technicians not have to think. It makes them just work in a single cockpit. You know, we do have our integrations with your PSA, your RMM, your remote control, but more importantly, it adds value to your security stack for you to sell downstream to your clients. And in this world of cybersecurity where people are breaking in left and right, and what, you know, the attacks that you show, Jim, is mind-boggling, that people don't really stand up and take a look at that. But what we allow for you to do is not have to worry about those passwords floating out there in the ether space. hey, what's your password? And they text them to them, or they drop it in an email. Everything is securely and stored that if someone changes, you can quickly change a password and everybody gets it. So, you know, I would love definitely for folks to kind of take another look at it and understand the value that you can add to your security stack by having a password tool like this. We are passwordboss.com, and I will do the same as Bobby has dropped my email address in there. If anyone has any additional questions, we would love to chat with you.
Great. Thanks, John. Appreciate it. So now we're running time. We've got 6 minutes left. So if anyone has any questions for JB or any of our panelists here, please feel free to put it in the Q&A or the chat. I've got chat up so we can start taking questions. I'll start by saying this, you know, JB, I know obviously, you know, I listed off the name of your impressive tech clients at the outset of the webinar. I didn't see any MSPs on here, right? So
yeah,
it's funny because obviously they're all big tech companies. There are some big MSPs out there right now, right?
Yep.
Do you ever work with MSPs?
Yeah, I mean, we work with small, medium, large. You know, we have an on-demand platform that anybody, so even a 2-person sales team, can literally get all the training that we do for Salesforce and all those other companies. It's an on-demand platform. It's kind of like Netflix for sales. There's a ton of content in there. But yeah, we'll work with them. And, you know, MSPs for me, I mean, I still grew up with MSPs, know it really, really well. And some of the same challenges seem to still be out there as far as differentiation and, you know, growth and scalable growth and those type of things. So those are all conversations we can easily have with people if they have questions about them.
Okay, cool. Anybody else have any questions? This is a great opportunity to engage with, you know, John, and Bobby. So this is being recorded, so I don't want to take up, all right, let's see, no questions.
I have a question for JB, if we have a second.
Yeah, shoot.
Hey, JB, it's super hard to hire salespeople right now, right? Yeah. Coming out of COVID, like people are just getting crazy offers, people no experience. Do you have any tips or tricks right now, like how to find good people?
It's tough. Oh, you know what? I would look at the ones who, because right now it's become it was a buyer's market when COVID hit, right? Because everybody got laid off and there was a whole bunch of like, oh my God, so companies could kind of trim the fat, but keep their good ones. And then they could selectively choose who they wanted to work with. And people were more than happy to get that job. It very quickly, over about 6 months, turned into a seller's market, right? So if you're good in sales right now, you can pretty much name your price. You can name your price, you can go wherever you want to go. If you have a successful track record and stuff like that. So I think the comp, you know, you have to reimagine the comp here a little bit. You got to reimagine the sales rep experience. It's not all about comp, especially for these younger kids. They are very purpose driven. They're about very value oriented in a lot of ways. So they look for different things than you and I did when we were growing up in sales. I mean, for me, it was like, you give me money and get out of my way. Give me money and give me my quota and get the hell out of my way. And don't give me these like team group things and team building shit, because I just wanted to go, right? Now all that is completely different. So you have to actually really look at your culture internally and promote your culture. This is why you as an organization and as a leader in an MSP, you have to be out there on social. You have to be not just talking about your thought leadership stuff. You have to be talking about the culture that you're building your organization. You have to be focused on that and sharing that and having your reps share that so that you can attract the type of talent that you want to attract. So what I would do is, you know, these days is, and this is where I find my, you know, my trainers is I pay attention to social. I see who's doing what on social. And usually the sales reps who are putting their content out there on social in a very thoughtful way are the ones who get it and are the ones that are going to be the future successful ones. So those are the ones that I reach out to independently and saying, hey, looks like you're doing a great job over there. I love your vibe, what you're putting out there on social these days. If you're open for an opportunity, we got a really cool company here that I think aligns with a lot of the values that you share. Would you be open to, you know, having a conversation? You know, and if you're going to go through with a recruiter, go through with a quality recruiter, not a quantity recruiter. You know, we use something new. So this guy, Scott McGregor, something new, super small boutique shop. And he's got a super rigorous process for putting people through it. And they're very, very selective. He doesn't just, you know, bring anybody to my table and say, hey, John, what, you know, interview this person. That's a waste of my time. You know what I mean? So a good recruiter right now is absolutely worth the money. I used to think it wasn't. I used to be like, are you out of your mind? 20% on a salary of 100,000. You want me to pay 20 grand to find talent? But talent right now drives everything. You got the right people on the bus and that bus will go. You get the wrong people on the bus and you will spend a lot of time spinning your wheels. And so boutique, you know, high quality recruiter, and then profiling and looking at and writing your job descriptions in a way that's different too. There's a whole thing, and I got all sorts of stuff on, you know, the bro culture in sales and how it really, you know, pushes women and people of color out of the, you know, so we all end up looking like just white guys, you know what I mean, that all fit a similar profile. We're all played sports and we all, you know what I mean? And I want somebody to play that. That is such an antiquated old way of looking at things. Like, fine, yes, I want you to be competitive, but just because you didn't play a sport doesn't mean you're competitive. I can't stand sales leaders right now. They're like, oh, I just want sports players because they get it. They're competitive. Well, then you're just a douche who's looking for a bro culture that's looking to go, right? Which, you know, that's just not going to attract the type of talent you want. We want women as sales reps. We want people of color as sales reps. They bring different experiences to the table. They bring diversity, not only to their approach, but to the organization. And guess what? Your clients are looking for that too. You know what I mean? Your clients are looking for people that they want to invest in and partnered with that don't all look the same, don't all, you know what I mean? So I would look through how you write your job description and taking out all like the trigger words like crush quota and that type of stuff and really rewrite them in a way that's more inclusive to everybody else. I would not just look to LinkedIn to get interviews. I would look at those local colleges, you know, whatever it is, different affiliations. I mean, there's a million different groups out there, women in sales, you know what I mean? There's a ton of those things where if you get into those groups and you look for talent there, you will find talent there. So you just have to be more creative with where you look, and you have to be also you have to look at yourselves being as attractive as possible to the outside world, but don't fake it till you make it. You know what I mean? Don't put your values out there if you don't live those values, right? Put those values out there. And that's why it comes from the top. Like the executive has to live and breathe those values and has to be talking about them online so that people look and say, holy shit. I mean, with me, I am wide open. I have 12 personal guidelines to success. I'm all over the place on social. I always share when it does not meet my values, I talk about it. And so when we hire, we find people who are like, oh my God, I can't believe a job posting came out because I've been dreaming about working for an organization that shares my values. I've been dreaming about working in an organization that has that type of flexibility, those type of things. So, you know, we get people who are excited to come interview when we post that job posting as opposed to, yeah, let me see if I can get a job here. You know what I mean? So you gotta change the game. Just like you got to change the game from sales pitching, right? And all that crap, like look to get creative. I think there's a lot of waiters out there right now, by the way, that would be fantastic in sales and who are probably not doing all that well in their, you know, in their that, you know, being a waiter anymore. So don't think a degree matters. Like, and please in sales, don't go for like the top college degree and don't give a shit about your GPA. Like I find that insulting. Anybody who's like, oh, well, you didn't go to a good enough college or what? If you ask me right now, I think it's actually ridiculous. If I was in an interview right now and somebody asked me my GPA, I'd be like, all right, never mind. I don't want to work here. You know what I mean? Like that's not the criteria. That is not sharing my value. Who gives a shit what my GPA is? Did I get through college? Did I get a degree? Did I do okay? Did I work through college? You know what I mean? Did I have a job through college, or did mommy and daddy pay for my 4.0? Because if mommy and daddy paid for your 4.0, I could care. I don't want you. I want the grinder. I want the kid who isn't as polished. I mean, Jim knows Kevin Ellis, kid that we hired at Thrive. I mean, this kid was about as rough around the edges as you could possibly get when he came in, right? But there was something about him, and I was like, there's something about. And then we hired this other kid, and I won't name his name, but he was pedigree. He had top college and all this other stuff. And we put him up, and we basically hired two, and we say, all right, we're going to treat him the same and see who wins. This kid came to me with like Gantt charts and graphs about why his meetings were better than Kevin's and all this other shit. This kid put his head down and crushed it and did everything I asked him to do. And guess what? After I got fired from Staples, he took over as VP of sales, and guess who's now a millionaire because they've recapped about 4 times over. like I'll take that kid all day long. So don't put this profile of what you think the perfect sales rep is. Go out, just get creative and go look for people with drive. Go look for with grit. Go look for people that can learn and are coachable. That's what you're looking for in a rep.
Awesome. JB, appreciate it. We're up on time. We're actually over time. Bobby, John Timko, JB, thank you so much today. Thank you all MSPs out there for participating, and remember to cover your SaaS.
Love it.
Thanks, Jim.
See you, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.